Eric was notoriously homophobic, but I still wanted him. I engineered a few accidental encounters, baiting the hook in plain sight and behind the scenes. Finally, with a bit of liquid courage, I forced myself on him and got what I wanted. The only problem? He was ridiculously well endowed. The whole experience was awful. So, first thing the next morning, my legs still shaking, I ran for the hills. A few days later, Eric cornered me outside a bar, threw me over his shoulder, and hauled me back to his place. He gritted his teeth, his face a tight mask of anger. "Babe, you reel me in and then think you can go fishing for someone else? Dream on." The music in the bar was deafening, and people were weaving in and out of the booths. I took a sip of my whiskey and glanced over. Eric was sitting in the next booth, one hand resting on his crossed legs, the other toying with his phone. The flashing lights carved his features into sharp relief, making him look handsome with an edge of aggression. I looked away, finished my drink, straightened my collar, and got up to leave. As I passed his booth, a drunk, balding creep blocked my path. "Hey beautiful, where you off to? Hick, why don't you come have some fun with me?" My face went cold. "Excuse me, please move." The man staggered, let out another boozy burp, and pointed a wobbly finger at me. "Don't be shy. I've got money. Come on." He actually reached out to grab me. I frowned and shook him off in disgust. "Get your filthy hands off me. Already 80% gone." He stumbled from the shove and crashed into the booth's table. Bottles clattered and fell, drawing eyes from all around. The fall seemed to sober him up a bit. He spat on the floor, embarrassed and furious, and scrambled to his feet, cursing. "Who the hell do you think you are, playing coy? A guy who looks like you in a place like this? You're just a rent boy. I'm doing you a favor, you ungrateful piece of—" Before he could finish, I grabbed a beer bottle off the table and, without hesitating, smashed it over his head. After the sharp crack of glass against bone, he collapsed to the floor, clutching his head and screaming like a stuck pig. I stood over him, holding the jagged neck of the bottle, and watched him writhe. Everyone was staring in shock. "What's going on?" "Holy crap, Leo!" Someone shot out of Eric's booth. It was my cousin, Ken, who had just been in the middle of a loud drinking game with Eric. He hopped over the broken glass, looked at the man on the ground, then at me. "Damn, Leo, what are you doing here?" I tossed the broken bottle onto the pile of glass and wiped my fingers with a napkin from the table. I was about to head home, but I ran into some trash. "Shit, this guy has a death wish." Ken's eyes were as wide as saucers. Just then, the club manager came rushing over with a group of security guards. He looked ready for a brawl, but his face completely changed when he saw me. He bowed and scraped, a sincere smile plastered on his face. "Leo, I am so sorry. You were offended. We'll take care of this right away. Your drinks tonight are on the house. Completely on the house." I didn't give the manager a hard time and just gave him a slight nod. Ken kicked the man on the floor, then turned to me. "Dude, you look like you've had a few. Want me to drive you home?" I looked him up and down. "And how are you gonna do that?" It took Ken a moment to realize he'd also been drinking. He scratched his head, embarrassed. "Oh right, well, I'll take him." I looked toward the voice. The man who had been sitting silently in the booth the whole time stood up, stretched his shoulders, and strode over to me in 2 long steps. "I haven't been drinking. I'm getting tired anyway. Let's go, Leo. I'll take you home. I gotta say, you don't look the part. You seem so delicate, but you don't hesitate for a second when it comes to smashing a bottle over someone's head." Eric was leaning back casually, one hand on the steering wheel, his fingers tapping out a rhythm. I sat in the passenger seat, rubbing my temples. Some people are just clueless. What can you do? He glanced at me. "Not feeling well?" "Not really. Just had a bit too much to drink. A little dizzy, that's all." He turned back to the road and honked at a gig driver who cut him off. "Drinking alone? Did you just get dumped? Drowning your sorrows?" I was speechless. "Dude, plenty of fish in the sea. Breakups happen. On to the next one. Plenty of fish? You're the fish I'm trying to catch," I thought. "You seem to take it pretty well." Have you dated a lot? Nah, not really, Eric said, switching hands on the wheel. All this time, and I still haven't met anyone who meets my standards. People are just so shallow these days. Anyway, we're here. The Kian slowed to a stop right in front of my apartment building. Thanks. I reached for the seatbelt, and my fingertips brushed against the back of his hand as he was grabbing a water bottle. It seemed like a normal, accidental touch, but the feeling of skin on skin was incredibly sharp. Geez, why are your hands so cold? The chill seemed to startle him. He reached over as if to double-check, touching the back of my hand again before pulling his away. I flexed my fingers and rubbed my hands together. Yeah, it's a little chilly. I didn't dress warm enough. Thanks for tonight. I'm heading up. I gave him a polite nod of thanks, opened the door, and got out. Just as I was stepping out, he called my name. A moment later, a warm, black coat was draped over my head. You're a grown man, you should know to wear a jacket when it's cold. Just wear this for now. You can give it back later. The Kian's engine roared, and the car disappeared down the street in a flash. I stood there, wrapped in his coat, and watched until the taillights vanished. My eyes narrowed. After a long moment, a smile crept onto my face. Eric and I had never really run in the same circles, but we were both well known in the rich kid scene. Me for my looks, him for being homophobic. The story goes that when he was in college, some clingy freshman cornered him on campus, threw open his coat, and started rubbing all over him. The kid was completely naked underneath. The whole thing disgusted Eric so much. Ever since then, he's been on a holy war against gay people. He'd walk a mile out of his way to avoid one. But, as luck would have it, I wanted to sleep with him. And I'd wanted to for a very long time. Back in my apartment, I opened my DMs with Eric. We'd been friends on the app for ages, but had never exchanged a single word. I'll bring your coat back to you tomorrow. 30 seconds later, a voice note came through. No rush. I'll come by and get it one of these days. Eric said he'd come get his coat. But days went by with no word from him. To get close to a guy like Eric, you can't be direct. You have to be a little sneaky. The best way is to slip into his life when he's not looking, so he gets used to you without even realizing it. 7 days later, I was standing at the entrance of his apartment complex with a suitcase. I took out my phone and sent a message. Ken, come down and get me. I had a fight with my family, gonna crash at your place for a few days. After it's sent, I watched the screen and counted the seconds. Just before a minute was up, I deleted the message. Sorry, wrong person. I tapped my fingers on the handle of my suitcase, wondering what the chances were that Eric had seen it. Less than 10 seconds later, my phone buzzed. Eric, stay put. 10 minutes later, a Panamera appeared like a sleek panther, screeching to a halt in front of me. The window rolled down, revealing Eric's roguishly handsome face. Look at you, Leo. What a mess. Get in. I'll put you up for a few days. I smiled and got in with my suitcase. Eric's guest room was huge, almost the same size as the master, with its own bathroom and balcony. I hadn't packed much, just a few changes of clothes. I hung them in the closet, and the suitcase was empty. Here, these are all new. You can make do with them for now. Eric brought in a pile of stuff. A toothbrush, a cup, face towels, and other toiletries. You know, he said, you shouldn't be so resistant. The best way to get over a failed relationship is to start a new one. Your parents trying to set you up on dates is a good thing. All this fighting and running away from home. Don't tell me you're still hung up on your ex. I shot him a dark look. Yeah, I am. Still thinking about them. I tossed his coat to him. You're really stubborn. He caught the coat with one hand, tucked it under his arm, and leaned against the doorframe. It's a miracle you've been carrying this around with you. Want some water? I nodded. Just then, my phone buzzed again. I unlocked it and started replying to a message. When Eric handed me the glass of water, my fingers were flying across the screen. With my hands full, I just leaned my head to the side and took a sip from the glass while he held it. Only after I finished my long reply did I take the glass from him. Eric just stood there, frozen. I looked up, confused. He seemed to be snapping out of a daze. What's wrong? Nothing. What are you so busy with? I raised an eyebrow. Arguing with my mom. You wanna see? You're such a rebel. You go ahead and argue. I'm gonna take a shower. Eric turned to leave, but I stopped him just as he was walking out. What is it now, Your Highness? I stood up and pushed my suitcase aside. Do you have any pajamas? I forgot to pack any. Eric gave me a set of cotton short-sleeved pajamas. Even though it was winter, the heat was on in his apartment, so sleeping in short sleeves wasn't cold. After my shower, I wiped the fog from the bathroom mirror. Eric was almost 6'3" with a strong, athletic build. His clothes were naturally baggy on me, and I'm 6 foot. The wide collar revealed a large patch of pale skin, making me look strangely smaller. I threw a towel over my head and walked out. Eric had also finished his shower. He was sitting cross-legged on the living room sofa with a towel around his waist, his wet hair sticking up as he focused intently on a game on his phone. I dried my hair. Do you have a hairdryer? Eric glanced up from his game. Yeah, in that cabinet up there. You can grab it. I looked up at the cabinet. It was definitely not in an easy-to-reach spot. Clearly, Eric never bothered to dry his hair. I walked over and tried to reach it on my tiptoes, but it was no use. I tutayed and was about to ask His Royal Highness to get it for me when I noticed his eyes were glued to my waist. Has anyone ever told you your skin is really pale? What a question. I turned around, crossed my arms, and leaned against the cabinet with a smile. Oh yeah, pale, handsome, gorgeous, I've heard it all. So, could I trouble you, Eric, to move your royal butt and get the hairdryer for me? See? Eric tossed his phone, which was now blaring game over, onto the sofa and strode over. Pretty boys are always so high maintenance. What's next? You want me to dry your hair for you? He came up beside me and effortlessly hooked the brand new box out of the cabinet. Just as I was about to take it, he opened it himself, plugged it in, and started blasting my head with hot air. The buzzing in my ears mixed with the sound of my own heartbeat. His long fingers moved through my hair, the sensation on my scalp incredibly distinct. In no time, my hair was dry and fluffy. Eric ruffled my hair playfully. Pretty well behaved. I casually turned around. Since he was already standing so close, and had been in a semi-embrace position while drying my hair, it looked like I had just turned around in his arms. If I leaned forward just a little, I would touch the bare skin of his chest visible through his robe. I smiled and patted his shoulder. Not bad, Eric. Great service. I'll be requesting you again. Eric let out a hey and dropped the hairdryer, rolling up his sleeves like he was about to mess me up. I bolted and made a run for my room. I slept soundly, but I have a bad habit. I love to sleep in. A thunderstorm wouldn't wake me, so when Eric started banging on my door in the morning, I just pulled the covers over my head, turned over, and went back to sleep. When knocking failed, he just barged in. What are you, a little kid? Still sleeping in? I've already made breakfast. Get up. I pulled the blanket up a little higher and ignored him. Get up. Eric put one leg on the bed and started pulling at my blanket, like a nagging mom forcing her kid to go to a weekend tutoring class. When he'd pulled the blanket halfway off, I rolled over again, right into his arms with my eyes still closed, and wrapped my arms around his waist. Buddy, don't mess around. Let me sleep a little longer, okay? Be a good boy. The person I was holding suddenly went still. The nagging voice disappeared, and my ears were finally quiet. I snuggled in contentedly, bending one leg to get more comfortable, but then I bumped into, well, a perfectly normal physiological phenomenon for a man in the morning. I cracked open my eyes and looked up. I saw the Adam's apple right in front of my face bob up and down, and a blush crept up his neck to the tip of his ear. I paused for a moment, then pulled back a little and sat up, rubbing my eyes as if I were still confused. When did you get here? I wasn't really awake. Eric stiffly shifted his position and stood up, looking a bit awkward. I was calling you for breakfast. You're a grown man, still sleeping in. Get up. He walked out with his head held high, looking all proud and mighty, if you ignored the fact that he was almost walking with his left arm and leg in sync. I smiled and rolled out of bed. 10 minutes later, I was at the dining table, eating the half-burnt fried eggs Eric had made. Eric kept eating and then stealing glances at me, his expression a fascinating mix of emotions as he tried and failed to say something several times. I ate the last good piece of egg, put down my chopsticks, and sat up a little straighter. What is it you want to say? Eric wrestled with himself for a while before finally speaking in a low voice. Did you think I was your ex-girlfriend just now? Is your ex's name Buddy? I was speechless. Buddy is my Alaskan Malamute. He always sleeps in the same room with me. Any other questions? Oh, a dog. Eric's earlier hesitation vanished. He turned back to his food with a look of sudden understanding, and there was a hint of some secret happiness in his movements. I pushed my chair back and stood up. Thanks for breakfast. I'm full, but I suggest you try the breakfast spot downstairs from now on. It'll save you time and effort. Hearing that, Eric playfully dropped his chopsticks. Hey, you little brat. I made this especially for you, and you're not even grateful. I turned to leave. Hey, where are you going? I turned back, confused. To the office. Don't you have to go? He chuckled, stood up, and walked over to me. He used his thumb to wipe a small crumb of egg from the corner of my mouth. Then he popped it into his own mouth, his tongue flicking out to catch it. I froze for a second. He playfully ruffled my hair. Wait for me. I'll drive you. And so began my life as a freeloader at Eric's place. For some reason, Eric kept stuffing things into the guest room. A rug identical to the one in his master bedroom, a life-sized Alaskan Malamute body pillow, aromatherapy diffusers for better sleep. It had everything except pajamas. I was still using his lounge clothes as pajamas, and I had to borrow another set for laundry days. Of course, I had no intention of buying my own. Neither of us ever mentioned me going home. After a month or so, I discovered one of his secret quirks, a thing for cool skin. He had a genuine love for touching skin that was slightly cooler than normal body temperature. And thanks to my constitution, my skin is slightly cool 365 days a year. One day, we were sitting shoulder to shoulder on the sofa, each minding our own business, when his hand brushed against my arm. His eyes lit up, and it was like a switch had been flipped. I became his toy in a sense. Every night, he had to be near me, rubbing the back of his hand up and down my arms over and over again. He especially loved the soft skin on my inner bicep. He couldn't get enough of it. Just one more time. Let me just touch it again. Come on, we're both guys. It's not like you'll lose a piece of flesh. I numbly removed his hand and pulled my arm away. No, you've been at it for half an hour. You're gonna rub my skin off. Get away from me. Come on, just a little longer. 5 minutes. Just 5 more minutes. No. I shot up to escape his clutches, but he grabbed the hem of my shirt and yanked. I lost my balance and stumbled, landing in his lap and falling into his arms. My head knocked against his chin, and I hissed in pain. Eric, in a reflex to protect me, grabbed my waist to steady me. But when I fell, my shirt had ridden up, so now his palm was pressed directly against my bare skin. It was an intimate, dangerous position. I looked up and shot him a warning glare, but he just grinned back at me. Shameless. Run. Let's see where you can run to now. Hey, your waist is pretty cool too. Let me feel. Before I could react, his hands were all over me. The sudden ticklishness made me bury my head in his neck, and an involuntary gasp escaped my lips. It was as if that sound triggered something in Eric. The hand on my waist instantly went limp. Ow, I felt like a dog had just bitten me. Eric's hand stopped moving, just resting there, skin against skin. The atmosphere shifted. I was so close I could even feel the subtle changes in his body. I looked up and met a pair of dark, intense eyes, a glint of light flashing in their corners. I pretended not to notice anything. I pulled his hand off my waist and grabbed a throw pillow, smacking him over the head with it. Eric, are you trying to strangle me? Eric's face returned to its previous cheeky grin. He held me down with one arm while his other hand shamelessly returned to the soft flesh of my upper arm. Just a little touch. It's your fault for trying to run. Be good. Let me touch it a couple more times, and I'll take you out for a big dinner tomorrow. Eric held me in his arms and rubbed my skin for another 5 minutes, a look of otherworldly satisfaction on his face. Only when the cheesy revenge drama on TV ended did he mercifully and reluctantly let me go back to my room. I collapsed onto my bed, feeling completely tortured. I had to mentally count to 30 before the heat he'd stirred up finally subsided. God knows how much self-control it took not to show any reaction earlier. I let out a hot breath and closed my eyes in resignation. The next morning, I was woken up by a certain someone pulling me out from under the covers and shaking me mercilessly from side to side. "Leo, wake up. I told you I was taking you out for a big dinner today." I squinted my eyes, pushed his vice-like grip away, and fell back onto the bed. "I've had every kind of big dinner there is. Besides, it's only 9. 9 is already late. It'll be 10 by the time you're ready, and we won't get to the restaurant until 12. Are we driving to another state for this meal?" Eric went full dictator on me, literally dragging me out of bed and into his room. "How about this one? The blue is nice. Or this one. Is black too somber?" I leaned against the wall, arms crossed, yawning as I watched him hold up one outfit after another against himself. "Are you going on a blind date or to your coronation? Should I order you a royal robe?" He stripped off his shirt, revealing a lean, muscular torso, and started putting on a button down. "You didn't know? It's my birthday today. A man at 28 is a flower in full bloom. Of course I have to dress up." I paused. It was his birthday today? An hour later, Eric was dressed in a full custom-made suit with a coat over it. His hair was perfectly styled with pomade, and he'd even spritzed on some cologne. He led me out the door, looking immensely proud of himself. His place was in the south end of the city, but he'd booked a private restaurant in the far north. By the time we arrived, it was indeed close to noon. The restaurant was niche and stylish, exactly my kind of place. Eric ordered quickly. Not long after, a woman in a slinky dress and a full face of makeup walked over and stopped beside me. "Hey handsome, can I get your number?" Eric, who had been looking down at his phone, snapped his head up and stared at us. I politely shook my head. "Sorry, I can't." The woman wasn't offended. She swept her wavy hair behind her ear and leaned in closer. "Do you have a girlfriend? Or are you married? As long as you're not married, what's wrong with having another option?" I'd been hit on like this plenty of times, but this was the first time someone had been so persistent. I glanced at Eric. He was staring straight at us, a barely perceptible flicker of annoyance and vigilance in his eyes. I decisively pointed at him and said with a smile, "Sorry, I'm celebrating my partner's birthday right now." He gets jealous. The woman's eyes widened slightly as she looked suspiciously at Eric. I kicked him under the table. Eric immediately switched from a look of shock to one of bashfulness. He then brought his hand to his mouth in an exaggerated, delicate gesture. "Oh, darling. In public, really? You're making me blush. You're so naughty." The woman's face went blank for a second, as if she'd been struck by lightning. Apparently, seeing a 6'3" man who radiated "I'm the king of the world" vibes say something like that was quite a shock. After a long moment, the woman straightened up, her eyes vacant, as if she'd seen through the futility of it all. "I was planning on asking out your friend here if you rejected me again. But since that's the case, I wish you two all the happiness." The woman took a deep breath, flipped her hair once more, and strode away on her high heels. I held back a laugh and gently kicked Eric's leg. Good reaction. The acting was a bit over the top, though. Room for improvement. Eric reached under the table, expertly grabbed my calf, and gave it a twist. He then continued his performance, his voice still high-pitched. "Darling, I want to buy clothes and jewelry and bags. Will you buy them for me? Please." He even wiggled his shoulders and shot me a flirty wink. Even on someone with Eric's face and physique, the gesture and tone were cringeworthy enough to make you wonder if you'd just been slipped some shrooms. I rested my forehead in my hand and leaned back in my chair, forcing out a few words. "Yes, buy them. Anything you want. Your darling will buy you everything." My cousin, Ken, is a social butterfly who knows everyone in every circle. When he saw Eric's social media post about our lunch, he immediately organized a party, insisting that we had to celebrate Eric's birthday properly. So, After dark, I found myself in the VIP room of the White Swan Club, playing drinking games with a bunch of people whose faces I recognized, but whose names I didn't know. Leo. Leo lost again. Come on, you can't escape this one. Man, Leo, you suck at these games.
Fill it up.
I just smiled, shook my head, and took the glass, downing it in one go. I had no idea how many rounds I'd already lost. Nice. Leo can really hold his liquor. Eric leaned in close to my ear. Are you okay? Aren't you drinking a little too fast? I turned my head unsteadily. Because he was so close, my lips brushed against the tip of his nose. The lighting in the room was too dim to see his expression. I smiled faintly and copied him, leaning in close to his ear and breathing out the words. I'm fine. I can drink more. Another round, another loss for me. The cheering around me got louder, and another full glass was placed in front of me. Just as I was about to reach for it, another hand, long and bony, grabbed it instead. He's had too much. I'll take it for him. Eric raised the glass to drink, but a red-haired guy who loved to stir up trouble grabbed his arm. Hey, Eric, it's not every day Leo parties with us. If you drink for him, you're not giving us a chance. Yeah, we've never seen Leo drunk before. Ken joined in the chorus. Don't worry about it, Eric. My cousin can drink my dad under the table. I chuckled, took the glass from his hand, and under Eric's slightly frowning gaze, drank from the exact spot his lips had touched, finishing it all. You guys keep playing. I'm going to the restroom. I stood up, swaying slightly as I passed Eric. He quickly reached out and steadied me, half hugging me. I'll go with you. Eric seemed genuinely worried I was going to face plant on the floor, his hand gripping my arm tightly. Are you sure you don't want me to come in with you? What if you fall and crack your pretty face open? I'm sure. Go on back. They're probably waiting for you to cut the cake. I refused his help and staggered into the restroom. The moment I was out of his sight, I slowly straightened my back and rolled my neck. I was far from drunk, but all those shots back to back had made my head throb. I took a moment to compose myself, splashed some water on my face, and looked in the mirror. The person in the reflection had flushed corners of their eyes, lips, and neck, and their eyes were watery. At first glance, I definitely looked drunk. I smirked and wiped my face before heading out. As soon as I stepped out, I saw Eric still waiting by the door, now holding my coat. He saw me and immediately shook the coat open, wrapping it around me. I told them we're heading home first. But you still haven't. No buts. You're wasted. We're going home. Eric called a driver, and we sat side by side in the back seat. I closed my eyes and pretended to sleep, my head leaning against the window. The car braked at a red light, and I tilted forward with the momentum, my head falling to the side and landing on Eric's shoulder. I didn't open my eyes, but I could feel his gaze on me from above. It was so hot it was almost tangible. After a moment, Eric brushed the hair from my forehead. His fingertips traced a path down to the corner of my mouth, paused for a moment, and then he silently shifted closer so I could lean on him more comfortably. He whispered, I think I'm really going crazy. I pretended not to hear, just made a soft sound and shifted my head, burying my face in the crook of his neck. A warm hand squeezed the back of my neck, then moved to my back to keep me from sliding off. Don't move around. If you fall, you can't blame me. Eric was carrying me in his arms. I wasn't making it easy, squirming and nuzzling against his chest, and he almost dropped me. I really owe you one. He stumbled through the door and dropped me on the sofa before stretching his shoulders. Then he took off his coat, undid the top 2 buttons of his shirt, and bent down to take off my shoes. I'm thirsty, I mumbled, my eyes half open. I know, Your Highness. I'm getting it. The room was warm from the heating. While Eric was getting water, I shed my heavy coat. He came back with a glass, and I took a sip while he held it. I noticed he'd thoughtfully added honey. The warm honey water settled in my stomach, warming my whole body. After a few sips, I waved my hand to show I was done. He put the glass down and leaned in. Does your head still hurt? I shook my head and fell back into his arms. My hot breath fanned across his neck, and the Adam's apple so close to my face bobbed up and down. Maybe the alcohol had really numbed my brain. I stared at it for a moment, then leaned in and bit down. After all, a drunk person can get away with anything. The hand on my waist tightened instantly. You? Eric's voice turned hoarse. I didn't give him a chance to speak. I pushed him down onto the sofa and climbed on top of him. Our chests were pressed together so tightly there wasn't a sliver of air between us. I lay on top of him, my fingers tracing the shape of his lips before sliding down to his chest. Eric, let me give you a birthday present. Eric's eyes were incredibly dark, like a vortex that could pull you in. What are you giving me? I let out a soft laugh, held his chin to part his lips slightly, and then leaned down and kissed him. His lips were warm and soft. Eric didn't close his eyes when he kissed. His gaze was dark and heavy, like a storm about to break. When the kiss ended, I stayed close, my lips brushing against his as I whispered, "I'm giving you me." It was as if Eric had been waiting for this answer for a long time. The moment the words left my mouth, my world turned upside down. He hoisted me over his shoulder and strode into the master bedroom. The experience was bad. Extremely bad. First, his equipment was way oversized. Just looking at it was intimidating, let alone using it. Second, Eric was a complete beginner. He had no technique, no finesse. His skills were in the negative. My first time felt like I'd been beaten with a club. After a whole night of it, the alcohol finally wore off, and my sanity returned. I looked at the person sleeping beside me and thought things over. It was a drunken impulse. I'd let things get out of control. Would he regret it when he woke up? Would he be disgusted? After all, I wasn't 100% sure he was in love with me yet. I couldn't imagine him looking at me with disgust. What would I say then? We're both adults. One night doesn't mean anything? When faced with so much uncertainty, people tend to run. And I was no exception. I thought for a moment, then gently moved his arm from my waist and slowly got up to get dressed. I took a long, hard look at him, then tiptoed out of the room. I figured he probably needed some time to cool down. I ran back home. The first thing I did was jump in the shower. Then, clean and refreshed, I collapsed onto my big bed. My waist was still aching. That Eric, he had the strength of an ox. I rested for a bit, then grabbed my phone from the nightstand and saw I had several missed calls. All from Eric. I opened my messages and it was like he'd launched a full-on bombing campaign. Why did you leave? Did you go to the office? But it's Sunday. Why aren't you answering your phone? Where are you? You're just gonna sleep with me and run? Leo, answer the phone. If you keep ignoring me, I'm gonna get angry. And the consequences will be severe. Leo, okay, I won't be mad. Just forget about the calls. Baby, just text me back when you see this. The intense vibe of a jilted lover was practically seeping through the screen. I paused. So, maybe he wasn't disgusted with me? What should I do now? Go back? But I just ran away. Going back immediately would make me look like an idiot. Besides, if I went back now, I'd have to face his anger. I might get beaten with a club all over again. No, I really couldn't handle that. He was just too bad at it. I didn't want a repeat performance anytime soon. I thought for a moment, then my fingers flew across the screen. I have some things to take care of. I'll be back later. A long time later, he replied, okay, take care of your stuff first. I stayed home, enjoying the comfort. It took me half the day to recover from the soreness in my waist and legs. I'd sent my dog, Buddy, to my mom's place earlier, so without him bothering me, I slept straight through until it was dark. My phone rang, cutting through the silence. I picked it up. It was an unknown number. Hello? Is this Leo? Sorry to bother you, but your cousin, young Mr. Ken, is here alone and he's completely wasted. I think he got dumped again. He's making a scene. Do you think you could come and get him? I was speechless. Dumped again? As pitiful as it was, I really didn't want to go pick him up. Have you tried calling his friends? Besides you, I only have Eric's number. But Eric wasn't in a good mood either. Said his man ran off and he was too busy to deal with it. Told me to find someone else. So, what do you think? I was at a loss for words. What does he mean? His man ran off. I rubbed my nose. Fine. I'll be there in a bit. I lazed around for a while longer before finally getting up. I stretched my arms, grabbed my coat and keys, and headed out. Just as I was about to enter the bar, a black shadow shot out from nowhere and pinned me against the wall. Eric's face was dark, his voice low and menacing. The pressure was intense. So this is the thing you had to take care of? Who are you here to see? I was speechless. I instinctively tried to deny it. I wasn't. His face was taut, his words laced with a biting anger. I waited outside your building all day. The second you leave, you come straight here. Babe, you reel me in and then think you can go fishing for someone else? Dream on. Before I could explain, he bent down, threw me over his shoulder, and strode away, drawing stares from everyone around us. In my panic, I saw the bar manager come out, his mouth agape as he watched me get blatantly kidnapped. Hey, wait! Leo. Eric. Young Mr. Ken is still inside. The moment we got back to his place, Eric threw me on the bed and sat across from me, his face longer than a horse's. We need to have a talk about last night. I found a pillow and hugged it, my hands clenching unconsciously. What do you want to talk about? Eric suddenly reached over to the nightstand and, with a clatter, laid out a bunch of things in a row in front of me. A bank card, a stack of property deeds, several sets of keys, and a few stock agreements. These are all my cards. All my money is in them. From now on, you handle the finances. Besides this apartment, I have 3 more in the north side of the city. Here are the deeds. 5 cars. They're all in the garage. Drive whichever one you want. This is my 30% stake in the Linwood Group. Do you have any other questions about my personal assets? Eric pushed everything in front of me like an eager child showing off his treasures, but his expression was dead serious. My eyes scanned over the items, then returned to his face. I studied him for a long moment before speaking with a smile. This is nothing special. I have everything you have and maybe even more. Eric ground his teeth and let out a huff. He snatched the pillow from my arms, grabbed my waist, and pulled me onto his lap, crushing me into his embrace. The pile of priceless documents was knocked to the floor. He rested his chin on top of my head. I don't care. I just like you. And you started it. You have to take responsibility. A warm, joyful current flowed from my heart to every limb, filling my entire chest with warmth. I buried my face in his chest, laughing softly, and ran my fingers up his back. Eric, let me tell you a secret. What? I don't have an ex. I didn't have a fight with my family. I've always lived alone in my apartment. I've been planning this for a long time. From the very beginning, my intentions were not pure. I looked up and met a pair of eyes that were completely filled with me. So, wanna date Eric? I leaned in and gave him a short, affectionate kiss, a brief touch before pulling away. Eric paused, a grin spreading across his face, his eyes burning. He snorted. Damn it, I'm completely wrapped around your finger. A torrent of kisses rained down on me, fierce and impatient. I clutched Eric's collar and kissed him back passionately. A moment later, a hand slid under my shirt and onto my back, its palm hot as it stroked my shoulder blades again and again. My eyes flew open. Alarm bells went off in my head. I pushed him away with one hand, my expression solemn, my voice cold. No, I'm sleeping in the guest room tonight. Eric's eyes widened. Why? I lowered my gaze to the now wrinkle-free fabric stretched taut over his lap. Your technique is terrible. I can't take it. Eric was speechless. He looked flustered, glancing down at himself, then back up at me over and over. Is it that bad? It's terrible. Extremely terrible. And with that, I slipped off the bed and scurried to the guest room, leaving Eric to wallow in his own desolate misery. The next morning, I was woken up by his noise. He had snuck in at some point and was now pressed against my back, whining softly as his hands shamelessly roamed, rubbing my cool skin. Only now he'd moved from my upper arms to my waist and thighs. Eric, it's so early in the morning. What are you? He nibbled on my earlobe. That's the point, it's early in the morning. And you seem pretty awake too. Don't move, let me touch. He pressed his body even closer, the feeling impossible to ignore. My whole body tensed as he whispered in my ear, "Baby, can we try again? Please? I studied all night. I promise I've gotten better. No, trust me, really. I learned a lot." An hour later, I was lying on the bed, completely exhausted, with the back of my hand covering my eyes. Eric was dutifully massaging my lower back. The culprit even had the nerve to ask for praise. "Baby, how did your husband do?" There was improvement, but not much. I let out a breath, my voice hoarse. "Still bad." Then, my legs trembling, I heartlessly kicked him off the bed. Everyone thought Eric had changed. The main evidence was that he went home on time every day. His social media was filled with couple posts, and at 28, the old player had finally settled down, even building a reputation as the perfect husband. Everywhere he went, he radiated the sweet aura of a taken man, to the point where he'd even brag to passing dogs that he had a beautiful partner. People we knew would offer their congratulations with fawning smiles. But his friends, including my cousin Ken, were not so calm. The looks on their faces were ones of pure horror, as if they just witnessed a meteor strike the earth. Wait, isn't Eric like the most homophobic guy ever? Why is he holding Leo in his arms, kissing and hugging him? Am I hallucinating? I didn't eat any weird mushrooms. Where's the guy who was screaming about banishing all gays from the planet a few months ago? Did he get possessed? I must be crazy. I actually think Eric is a lucky guy. Leo, if you've been kidnapped, blink twice, Leo. Ken had a miserable look on his face. Is this why you guys let me get wasted and give a striptease at the bar all by myself? Eric paid them no mind, just leaned in and gave me another loud smooch, looking as smug as a husky who'd just stolen a treat. He jutted his chin at the group. From now on, don't call him Leo. You call him the Missus. Got it? The silence that followed was terrifying. I expressionlessly dug my nails into the thigh under my hand. Eric's face instantly twisted in pain. I said flatly, "Anyone who calls me that, I'll twist their head off." Ken swallowed hard and whispered to the person next to him, "My cousin's for real. He did 3 years of MMA." Another wave of silence. Then someone broke it. I just remembered I have laundry hanging out to dry. I should go get it. My bed isn't made. I have to go home and make it. I forgot to feed my cat. Within 5 minutes, the only person left was Ken. He held up his phone, looking on the verge of tears. "Leo, my mom is asking if you're seeing someone. What should I tell her?" For the 50th time, I removed Eric's misbehaving hand from my bicep and shot him a disapproving glare. "Just tell her yes, and that I'll bring her son-in-law home to see her for the holidays." "Why is your mom asking Ken about your love life?" Eric had just gotten out of the shower and was sitting next to me, drying his hair. I sent off the last email and closed my laptop. Because I never talk about my relationships, and I always reacted so strongly against the blind dates she suggested. So my mom always thought I had a secret, unrequited love, the one that got away, and she was afraid to bring it up and reopen old wounds. Eric couldn't help it, he burst out laughing. I grabbed his bathrobe and yanked it forward. The collar distorted, revealing his powerful chest muscles. "So, my dear, are you ready to meet the parents?" Eric laughed heartily and pulled me into his arms for a big kiss. "Of course I'm ready. I'll add your name to the deed, pay whatever you want. Whether you want me to kneel on Legos or just get chewed out, I can take it. I'm tough." "That won't be necessary." "Hey, what do our parents like? Handbags? Antiques? We have to make a good first impression. Or, how about we make a baby as a welcome gift? Have you lost your mind? Where are you putting your hands? Stop touching me. Should be good. Don't move. This is my right as a husband. Just a couple of touches. No, I haven't showered yet. I'll help you wash up later. Come on, one kiss. Give me a kiss, baby." Eric tilted my chin up and leaned in. Under the bright lights, the overflowing love melted between our lips. Our fingers intertwined. My heart felt full to bursting. Eric covered my eyes, his hot breath sweeping across my skin as he spoke, his words intimate and cherished. "I will love you forever, until our ashes are scattered in the sea."